Are you F1 driver? Are you F2 driver? Because you're a bit of both. Where are you at in your head?
F1.5, something like that, somewhere in the middle.
Box, box, box. Box, 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 box.
Hi, I'm talking Tyre. Every episode, 3 guests in the box to break down what's soft, medium, and hard. Let's check it out.
Welcome to Box, 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 a quick pit stop into the world of Formula One. Episode 2 is about education, and we're going to hear from a driver who's proved that he's a very quick learner. We're also going to hear from someone who's going to educate us about the ever-changing landscape of TV broadcasting in Formula One. But first, let's hear from someone whose job it is to prepare drivers for Formula One.
Box, box, box.
Next to pit, we have Bruno Michel, who is the boss of F2 and F3. Bruno, lovely to have you on the show. All good?
Thank you. Yeah, all good.
Now, because you're the boss of the junior categories, I don't really know what to call you. I think headmaster is what I've settled on.
I wouldn't call myself a headmaster. The teams are more headmasters than I am. You know, they are the ones that have to deal with the drivers on a day-to-day basis. Me, I'm trying to give them the opportunities to show what they can do on equal machinery and to show who's the best driver. And after that, sometimes, yes, you have to deal a little bit with discipline, but it's not so much my job, it's not the job of the FIA.
Interesting you say discipline, because I was going to ask, how much better prepared are the young drivers for Formula One today compared to 20 years ago when you started GP2?
Much, much, much better. The reason for that is that when I started GP2 20 years ago, there were quite a lot of championships existing. And it was very difficult, and I remember because I was doing driver's management at that time as well, it was very difficult to choose where to put a driver. You had the Formula 3000, you had the World Series, you had, there were many different series all over the world. And to find a proper path of preparation for the driver was not so easy. Now, things are very simple. There's a pyramid that works between us and the FIA and under us with other promoters. And it's very simple for the drivers to know how to go up and what they need to do next. And the preparation, whether you go from go-karting to Formula 4, whether you go from Formula 4 either directly to Formula 3 or to Formula Regional and then to Formula 2, it's steps by steps give them the experience to be able to be good when they arrive in Formula One, because that's the whole purpose of the pyramid.
And we live in a digital world now. Simulators are a huge part of a young driver's preparation. How much do they help?
A lot. Makes a big difference. The drivers, when they arrive on the track, they don't know. Actually, they already know it. And it's incredible because the technology of the simulators has massively evolved over the last 10 years. And now driving a simulator is almost like driving a proper car. You have dynamic simulators that makes really the same sensations. Not only you have the same track and you have the same setup and you have the same reaction of the track, but also the physical reactions are the same as well. And it's very, very impressive. And the drivers now are getting that more and more, including in the preparation they have with the F1 teams later on.
Now, you've had literally thousands of drivers pass through your series. Are the good ones obvious to spot?
Yeah, the exceptional one, yes.
Throw some names at us, Bruno.
The ones we had, Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hülkenberg, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, the ones that are winning our championships as rookies generally are really exceptional ones. And after that, yes, you have some very good drivers. And I wouldn't say they're easy to spot because it's always interesting to see the evolution of a driver. For instance, in go-karting, it's very difficult to know because there's such a difference in between material, and you also have some kind of professional go-karters, which makes life more difficult for young drivers. After that, when they start to go into single-seater car, yeah, you can spot them. I wouldn't say quite easily, but you can spot them with more confidence.
So the exceptional ones are easy to spot. Have you ever misjudged a driver?
Oh yes, I did. Yeah, yeah. Of course, it happened. When I was doing driver's management, yeah, I'm always saying that. But when on the second year I was running the Renault program, I dropped a young driver called Robert Kubica to take another one, which nobody knows the name. So of course it happens, and that was, and you know, Flavio is always having fun of me with that. 30 years after, 25 years after.
Robert, of course, winner of the 2008 Canadian Grand Prix.
That's right.
But you say the exceptional ones are easy to spot. Was Robert a late developer, or did you just miss it?
No, he did not fulfill what we had set up as a goal for his season. And I remember he was in Italian Formula Renault, and he didn't win. That's as simple as that. And I was quite disappointed because I was sure he was going to do it. And then I had another driver who won the French one, and I decided to keep that one and not Robert. So it can happen.
Bruno, final one from me. Look, Pirelli. Both of your championships use Pirelli tyres. How fundamental is Pirelli to what you do in the development of, let's say, the new F3 car that's coming in 2025?
Well, Pirelli is almost my oldest partner, because the fun thing is that we started GP3 with Pirelli way before Pirelli was in Formula One. And then we moved to Pirelli with GP2 as well, way before Pirelli was in Formula One. So it's been a very, very long partner, and I must say we've been working very well together, because we every year work very closely on the development of the tires on the basis of what we've done the year before. And tires are completely key in making a race interesting, and in teaching the drivers how to use tires and how to make up with degradation, and it's something that is always a very interesting work to do together. I'm pushing Pirelli to try to have tires that have more degradation, and they're pushing me to be more conservative. So it's always a very interesting relationship that we have. And most of the time, the result on the track is great, and sometimes we have to correct it.
Well, look, fascinating chat. Thank you for your time. Before you go, we all want to learn a little bit more about you, Bruno. And if you click your fingers above our good friend Tyre, she'll ask you a question.
Here's Tyre question. What kind of personality are you? Soft, medium, hard?
I would say in the business quite hard, and in the real life probably quite soft.
Family soft, business
Family is
hard.
soft,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay, great chat. Thank you, Bruno.
Box.
Next, a driver who's won in Formula 3 and Formula 2 and is now preparing for a full-time race seat with Haas in Formula 1.
Box.
Next to box, we have Ollie Bearman. Ollie, how are you?
Good. I don't know what to say.
Listen, Ollie, I don't know how to refer to you these days. Are you F1 driver? Are you F2 driver? Because you're a bit of both. Where are you at in your head?
Like F1.5, something like that, somewhere in the middle. I'm still racing in F2 this year and still focused on that and wanting to finish on a high with Prema. But at the same time, I'm, got my future secure in F1 for next year, and I'm really excited to get started. And I can't help but be excited for that and think towards what next year holds.
Look, what is it like to have such a long run-up to a new season? Because in the junior formulas, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's all sort of quite last. What am I doing next year? What am I doing next year? And it's quite last minute. Suddenly, you've had a 6-month build-up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm used to having my future plans secured within months of next year. So to have it so far in advance is, on one hand, it's a nice feeling, bit of pressure off my shoulders, but on the other hand, it's annoying because I really want it to be now. I've been working really, really hard these months to make sure that when the time comes, I'm ready. But I really struggle with patience. I just want it to be Australia already, and I really want to get started.
You're like every other racing driver, right? But so you've done all the FP1s in 2024, a couple of races as well. How difficult is it to flip-flop between F2 and F1? What are the biggest differences between the cars?
It's definitely tough. Quite a different driving style between the two cars, which doesn't make my life easy. Always jumping back and forth. I do feel a bit natural in F1. I tend to get up to speed a bit more quickly, and I feel a lot of confidence when I drive F1. I always feel like I'm back at home when I get in the F1 car, which is nice. And every time I get in the F1, I feel like that's more and more the case, which is a good feeling.
I'm fascinated. Why? Why do you feel more at home in the F1 car?
I just feel like the way I drive is a bit more suited towards that car. The way that I tend to attack and make lap time is rewarded in F1, whereas it's a bit more, I'm more likely to make mistakes in F2, it seems. Judging by how it's been going, I'm not 100% natural in F2. Even when I'm performing really well, I don't feel fully confident. Whereas in F1, when I have a good feeling with the car, I feel really, really good and really at home.
That's the car difference. What about the team difference? Because the theme of this episode is education. What is the biggest difference? What are you learning about how to get the maximum out of a Formula One team?
Well, I mean, the first thing is the personnel. There's a lot more people in an F1 team compared to what I'm used to. The last 2 years in F2, I've had maybe 12, 13 people maximum. Basically, the whole team is in on the pit stop. Like, the whole team is working on the pit stop. Even the engineer is controlling the lollipop. So it's, really small numbers. Then you get to F1, and I'm really meeting new faces every time I come in. Still have to work hard to remember everyone's names. I like how Ferrari does it. They have the names of everyone on the T-shirt. For a newbie like me, it really helps. But yeah, there's just so much attention to detail in F1 because they have the investment to do that. There's a guy on everything. There's a guy who, focuses on your starts. There's a guy who just looks at the way you drive. The guy who just works on the tires, tire management, and stuff like this. And the attention to detail is something really impressive. You can really focus on every detail. And that's why at this time in F1, everything is so close.
And nothing is left to chance, is it, in Formula One?
No, I mean, you see in these qualifyings more recently, the top 5, top 6 split by a tenth of a second. And that tenth of a second can be the difference between, the driver not being fully 100% confident in the car in one corner, or, these tiny things about tire preparation or anything. So you can't leave anything to chance. The amount of hard work that goes on behind the scenes is really impressive. Like, I spend a lot of time in the Ferrari factory just to see this sheer number of people who work tirelessly on that car is impressive.
As I said a minute ago, we're talking. This is education. That is the theme of this show, and I want to learn a little bit about you. Who are your heroes growing up? Racing drivers or people from outside of this sport?
The first obvious one is my dad. I always looked at him as being the guy who could do anything. Like, he really was someone who I looked up to. He was supporting me at every race, and he's, when you grow up and look up at your father, he's really the the superhero. Like, he seems like he can do anything, and he's been supporting me every step of this journey, and he's been with me the whole time. And honestly, without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I owe a lot to him.
Did your dad race?
Yes, he did race. Not at a very high level. He did some GT racing in the UK, club racing and stuff like this. He had a card when he was younger, but they didn't have the time or money to really race at a high level. But that interest in motorsport has always been on my dad's side of the family. I'm the first one to obviously get this high, and it's really proud because it's not just me in this journey. It's also my whole family. A lot of commitment, time, financial, and stress for sure. So yeah, it's I would definitely say my father, but also my whole family have really been great for me.
That's a lovely thing to say. Are there any racing drivers who you've looked up to?
In terms of drivers, I would say Michael probably, just because how the success he brought to Ferrari, the mindset, he was a true athlete, one of the first to really take the off-track approach and mentality really seriously. And, a lot of people who worked in Ferrari when Michael was there, who are still there now, speak very, very highly of him. And, the way that he brought this success to Ferrari is something really impressive.
Well, look, final one from me is a would you rather. Ollie, would you rather? You ready for this?
I'm not sure.
Would you rather be guaranteed a 20-year Formula One career, but with no guarantee of a world title, or would you rather retire at 25 with a guaranteed world title in your back pocket?
That depends. If I could retire from F1 and then move on to some more motorsport, but I think I would be lost without racing. At 25, I'm. It's still a long way away, but it's that's a bit too young. I would love to win a world championship. That's of course what gets me out of bed in the morning. But you've really put me on the spot there with that question. I think I would stop F1 at 25, being a world champion, and then explore other things motorsport related.
You sound very like Fernando Alonso.
Well, I would stay in F1 forever if I could, but of course I need to perform to do that. So that's my next goal.
All right, look, best of luck with everything. Well, Ollie, can I introduce you to Tyre? She has a question for you, but you have to do something to get her to ask it.
What is that?
Click your fingers.
Here's Tyre question. What kind of personality are you? Soft, medium, hard?
That's a great question. Depends on the circumstance. I guess I would say I'm a hard personality, but I feel like it depends on a racetrack with my helmet on. I'm a true competitor and a hard personality, but maybe off track I'm a bit of a softie.
Look, good luck with everything. Thank you, Ollie.
Thank you.
Box, box, box.
Finally, let's learn about the fascinating world of broadcasting in Formula One.
Box, box, box.
Next in the box, we have Ian Holmes, the Director of Media Rights. Now, Ian, you've been involved in Formula One for a long time. Dare I ask, how long?
Too long. 23 years, actually.
And counting.
And counting.
Now, look, what an extraordinary time to have been involved in the sport, actually, because the way in which F1 has told its story in that time has changed dramatically, hasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I think what we should say at the outset is the area within which I work specifically is media rights. So I sell to the people that show Formula One. We used to call them broadcasters, broadcast partners. That's not technically accurate anymore because of the developments in technology. So even before you go into the sport itself, the technology has changed in such a way how we consume media, what we watch, how we watch, what we watch it on, and how it gets there. So over the considerable period of time I just mentioned, that we won't say again, that technology side has changed massively, and obviously Formula One is a component that sits within that.
So within your job scope, one of the huge things that's changed is the move from free to air to pay.
Yeah, exactly. I would think it would be accurate to say when I first started, and probably for the first 8+ years, primarily our partners were free-to-air broadcasters. Some public channels owned by government, some private channels, the likes of the BBC, RAI, RTL. Some of those continued to exist, not many of them now. Some of them still have some Formula One, but it was primarily free-to-air television.
Look, and what about social media? Everyone watching this, you're watching a vodcast. Just how has social media changed the landscape for you?
So like everyone else, we've been through this transition. I would say that Formula One in particular, we had a very traditional way of licensing our rights. We were very happy to give a very broad exclusivity, and if you acquired the rights for a particular territory, you were the ones that exploited it and no one else. And we were married to that model probably more than most. Then obviously as technology changes, habits change, we were one of the last sports organizations, I would say, to embrace social media.
Well, can I ask why that? Why was that? The
Certain-
belief that less is more.
Yes, and I'll qualify what I'm about to say, but a certain man by the name of Bernard Charles Eccleston, who was very traditional, and he very much believed in that concept of having an exclusive relationship. And also the type of content that lends itself to social was not the sort of content he was particularly excited about being out there. And we'll probably touch on that again in a minute. So it was very much cars on the track and nothing else. And as we all know, the social content includes cars on the track, but also all of the sort of perhaps shoulder type content, drivers arriving at the circuit, or what they're doing in the garage, or indeed doing a podcast. So that's not to say that Bernie stopped that, but he very much pursued that sort of exclusive arrangement, and until relatively recently, very successfly.
What about Drive to Survive? Okay, the cameras are outside where we are now. They're filming, I think, what is it, 7? I think it's Series 7, isn't it?
Yes, this is Series 7.
It has been a phenomenal success. When it was first mooted within the corridors of power at Formula One, could you have believed the impact that show was going to have?
Absolutely not. Without going into sort of too much history, we were in discussions with another worldwide streamer who were interested in a series that focused on one team. So we pivoted away from one streamer and ended up with another streamer, Netflix. But we had no idea it was going to be quite as successful as it was. I mean, clearly Series 1, Mercedes and Ferrari didn't participate, and we thought, well, that might be the sort of death knell for the series. Ironically, it was probably one of the things that helped it.
Go on, you have to explain that.
I think what it did, it helped demonstrate the nature of the series and the narrative, that it's not about who won a race or who won the championship and who came second. What it demonstrated was that people were interested in stories about people, stories about organizations behind the scenes, and as we have since seen in multiple series since, some of the biggest characters that have come out in the series, they're not at Ferrari and Mercedes. I mean, everyone wants to know about their drivers and things, but this is about human interest.
And is that the magic ingredient that has resonated so much with the audience?
Yeah, I would say that's one of the main reasons, is that our sport is a complex sport, it's a technical sport that's superbly covered, I would say, by Formula One's own on-site production and covering the racing on the track. But it's difficult to cover that off in a traditional way, and what Box to Box, who produce it for Netflix, have been successful in doing is picking out the individual stories, the narratives around drivers in particular, and who knew team principals would become quite so popular, and so on and so forth.
Right, so that Drive to Survive has been responsible for a huge boom in recent years. Let's throw it forward to June 2025 now, which is going to be the launch of the movie, the Brad Pitt movie called F1. Do you think that's going to have a similar impact to Drive to Survive?
I try not to make a comparison. I think, Drive to Survive, as we've talked about, we're 7 series in, so it's longevity. I mean, you don't get 7 series of almost anything. This is a one-off film. I see it as, I was going to use a drug reference, but I won't. But I see it as a hit, a very, very, very big hit. It will have a meaningful theatrical release. Don't ask me what that exactly means, but it will be in cinemas all over the world for a relatively modest period of time, but enough. And then we'll end up on Apple TV. But looking at what Apple are planning on doing it, and looking what Warner Brothers Discovery, who will be doing the distribution, are planning on doing with the film, it'll be everywhere.
Because the way Drive to Survive has brought in a new audience, do you think the movie will bring in new people as well?
Yeah, I do. First of all, a movie is a different genre than a series. Some people don't like series but prefer movies, and vice versa. And look, the production, the stars, obviously got to mention Brad Pitt, but Jerry Bruckheimer producing it, and Joe Kosinski directing it. Javier Bardem, etc. You know, these are big names who will, just because of who they are and their popularity, are going to bring in a lot of people. And I'd like to think another set of people over and above what Drive to Survive has brought in. So it follows our, you know, we've been trying to develop a policy of making Formula One, or getting Formula One available in Formula One content available in as many different areas as possible, through different genres: short form, long form, scripted, unscripted, the film, the series. You know, we're developing a series on travel and cooking. You know, we travel a lot, and there's wonderful food. We're looking at, you know, the technology side, which is something that's an area we played in before. We're looking at some kids, adolescent and younger kids projects. You know, what we want is to seed Formula One, you know, in an appropriate manner into as many different areas as possible. And the film is another example of that.
Final question from me. Maybe many of you watching this have watched F1 TV. It's a fabulous offering. How big is that gonna get? I mean, could you envisage a day where the only way to watch Formula One is through your own channels?
Short, medium term, I'm talking up to 10 years, no. You know, F1 TV, our own OTT product, technically it's fantastic. It has very broad coverage. It involves a lot of a depth of coverage that you won't get on any other channel in the world. However, as much as we like to think that Formula One is the biggest sport in the world, you know, there's that round ball game that's quite big. But the reason I mention that is about the marketing and the availability. It helps us if we're on a platform that also has the Champions League, or we're on a platform in America that has Monday Night Football. And what our broadcast partners bring, other than just showing the sport, is they promote the sports. However, I think we will see in some territories a morph, not necessarily at the expense of a broadcast partner, but we're already seeing it where you have a choice. You could watch it locally on a particular channel, or you could watch it on F1 TV.
What a fascinating chat. Ian, thank you very much. One final thing before you go. Please, can you click your fingers above my good friend Tyre, because she wants to ask you a question.
Here's Tyre question. What kind of personality are you? Soft, medium, hard?
I'm going to go with medium. And I would say the reason for that is that, as we see, sometimes the mediums can compete with the hards, sometimes with the softs. I'd like to think I change, depending on who's asking a question.
Ian, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode of Box, please share with your friends. And look out for the next episode, which is going to be all about commitment. Bye for now.